Thank you. Everyone back? What a journey. Certainly not like the one I'm going to talk about. Life on the ocean wave. Well, here we are. We are the ship on the ocean of love and mercy. And we are the captain of it. Whether we like it or not, we steer the ship. And do I embrace life and all its ups and downs, or do I retreat and let it pass me by? I have to say, it's a bit of a balance there. Sometimes you don't want to go out the door. Some people I know don't. Some people have stayed there for months. But it doesn't help us on our ocean journey, because we know that once the ship is in the harbour, it's safe. But it's not meant to stay in the harbour. It's meant to cross the sea in all kinds of weather, transporting cargo and us. So, I believe our purpose is to navigate that journey of evolution from Adam to Christ. Those of you who have been in Unity for a while know that book, the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary. I keep plugging it because it's important, same as a revealing word. And every character in the Bible we can take metaphysically, and at one point in time we are that character, the goodies and the baddies. In the revealing word, we find that water, amongst other things, represents the great mass of thoughts we live in. And what a mess it is. That's why in meditation this morning it was so good to say, stop. I'm not listening to that stuff out there. I'm not going to check the phone, as it's easy to become addicted to, and you get the news straight away. Some shocking news at the moment, and some good news. And some things that should be bigger news are swamped out by something even bigger 24 hours later, and that's the way it goes. So we're living in this pea soup of this unconscious mind. We've been brought into it, we've been hanging around it, we've been part of it, whether we know it or not, and it's time for me to wake up to it. When I think of Ron Barassi, who died for 87 yesterday, or was it Saturday, Bob? Saturday, yes. And I remember him...
That was yesterday.
Oh, it's all a mess. It's all a madhouse. Life on the ocean wave. But he used to live near me in St Kilda, down by the sea. And I'd see him and I'd see that other icon, Tommy Hafey, coming out of the water at all hours of day and night, especially in the early morning. And I think I've told you, I was running past, I decided I'd get fit. So I jogged along the seaside and I thought, my goodness, it's 8 o'clock, time to go home. And out of the water, submerged, comes Tom Hafey. And it was amazing. And he said, hello, young fella. Mind you, this was a while back. And, you know, I said, I'm just starting my fitness. He said, well, make sure you keep it up. Well, I was inspired for about 5 hours. And that was superseded by other things. And we used to see Ron Barassi jogging up Beaconsfield Parade. And I believe Sheila lives at the end of Beaconsfield Parade now. And we used to see him come and go, and especially from my window, I could see the sea and who was coming and going. Fascinating. In Matthew 14, 22, 23, we read of Jesus walking on the water and of the disciple Peter not quite making it. Peter represents faith. Before faith is fully established, it's subjected to all the winds and waves of public opinion and indecision, and it's a madhouse to just get a little bit of faith. And we're tested every day with faith. I know we're born perfect, but we're still learning how to express more of that perfection. It's a never-ending job. And so we express more faith as bigger things come into our lives, and Ernest Holmes calls it established consciousness, where you're not knocked off your perch. And I have that with cars. My dear old car has a slight transmission problem. So I said to God, I have faith that you'll get me back to Ballarat. But in that, I need to get the RACV down to have a quick look at it, to make sure I'll get back. So that was intuition. With my helping, asking God for help, this is what the answer was. And we know that there are different times in our lives where we really need faith. In these turbulent times and calm times, it's a world of opposites, and through persistence, we eventually learn to express more and more of this Christ consciousness, the I am presence, the seed of the divine, the pearl of great price, or whatever else works for you. As I said, we don't come fully orbed. We're a work in progress. We're actually perfect as we are, but we have more to go. We're perfect in our imperfection because we've got to go through this and to be aware of it and remember who we are and what we're expressing. Sometimes when we think back, I've said this before, enlightenment, hallelujah, the angels, trumpets, that's one side of it, but the other side of enlightenment is you realise what a goose sometimes I've been. Looking back how I could have handled things so much differently. And I have to learn to forgive myself. I know I live in an old Methodist church, but I put up a Buddhist painting. You know those things you get from the old cheapo shops? Big Buddha, not canvas, I think it's on some form of curtain. And it says, don't think of tomorrow, don't think of the past, think of now. Well, that's all right, but there's a certain stage where you do think. And you think, well, I know there is the law of grace. That law, which means you've learnt your lesson, you've mourned for it, you're forgiven. You've felt the pain, now move on, because that is the next step. We are body, mind and spirit. And our body is here in this physical world. And as we grow in consciousness, we can express more of that, mentally, physically and spiritually. And my library angel up in the bush led me to my bookshelf again, and I looked there and thought, what now? And there it was, a book by Thoreau, who wrote Walden Pond. He was a transcendentalist about the time of Emerson, 1817, passed away at 1862 at the early age of 45. He had a very quaint way of reminding us that we need to look after both the body and the soul. He wrote, "Good for the body is the work of the body, and good for the soul is the work of the soul, and good for either is the work of the other." Now that tickled me. Sometimes when you get a simple truth, you can be on the floor laughing, how simple it is. We are the body now. This is our journey. And I have to learn to respect the physical side of me when sometimes I get more high on intellectual things and music. I could sit there all day and do things and not get up. But we're learning now that we have to get up and use it. We really do. And that's my challenge for the future. Now, Thoreau, along with Emerson, were part of what I said was the transcendental movement. And some of you would have found that out when you did the history of unity and new thought. Did you recall that, Stuart? Emerson, yes. And there's a few others, I can't think of the other ones, but there's also an English branch of the Transcendentalists. Writer Marcus Bark says that Charles Fillmore read Emerson endlessly, attempting to understand why the metaphysical religion worked. Those who in the past have subscribed to the Unity magazine, and there's a new one here which I'll ask Jenny to process if she can later, there's a Q&A section in the back near the end pages put together by Tom Shepherd. He's a great, great writer and very wise man, Unity minister, retired now, but not from this column, thank goodness. In one state he wrote that one can't really understand Unity without understanding Emerson and the Transcendentalists. That may or may not be so, but those interested in the involvement of Unity, look out for those courses on our Unity website. I know some of you are doing them, and they're really, really powerful things. Seeds are sown. So what navigational skills do we need to ride this ocean of love and mercy? Well, it's there in the Bible, Psalm 46, verse 10. Be still and know that I am God. Now, as we sit, we listen for that inner voice, intuition, which will reveal to itself in ways we can understand. It may not even be a voice, it might be a feeling. It might be an urge to do this or to do that, and it might be a sign going past on the truck while you're sitting quietly having a coffee in a restaurant. And I've had many a time where I've sat there and watched the trucks go past, and one truck actually said on the back of it, grace. Now, it was a grace removalist, I'm sure. But the thought, that's good. And another time, I think just before Wendy did a talk on removing stuff, getting rid of junk. And I was sitting there again, and this truck goes past us, we take your junk. And little things, you've all been aware of this. Have you had a radio song that's come on at the right moment? Jenny, you're nodding.
Yes, it's happened. I can't think specifically of, but yes, that's definitely happened.
Yes. And you too, Evelyn? We all have, haven't we? There's been some way a message gets to us. And you mightn't get anything in the silence consciously, but I don't think that's how it works. You get what you get from the silence when you're out and about. Well, that's just my opinion anyway. Then we come across another Unity principle. Knowing and understanding the laws of life, this inner wisdom, are not enough. We've got to get out there and live the truth. And the Gospel of Thomas says, Thomas asked Jesus, what is the sign of the Spirit working? And he says, a movement and a rest. So we take what we do from that stillness where we're still, we're resting, and then we move and we find it. It's actually working out in our lives. Now, anything can happen here. I'm going to take us on a journey on the ocean wave. I can imagine myself, when we're here, if we had a Sunday school, I can imagine all the kids there, and this is what I'd say to them about the subject on the ocean wave, reincarnation and evolvement. It's not a big deal in Unity, but Charles Fillmore studied it, Ernest Wilson wrote a book about it, and other Unity ministers have talked about it. So we evolve from where we are, and if we want to express more and more of that nameless quantity you were talking about today, you can't call it anything. We just have to see what happens in the next lifetime. That's not to say we think about that, because now is the only moment we've got. So I'd say to my Sunday school gathering, this is us. There we are. We start out as a little boat, a rowboat. And it needs someone to give us energy to go across the waters. Not too quick, right? I have a little spiel on something. Okay. Now, okay, I did that for many lives. I was tired of that. Now look, I've got a motor. I don't need that person. I can do it all myself. Aren't I clever? There's this motor and I'm chuffing along the sea. All is well. Thanks, Anne. Until I got a little bit too big for my boots. And look what happened. So that was a big lesson for me when I was a boat that time. So I learnt my lesson and I got help from the big boat in the sky. He got behind me and gave me a push and I was up and away. I thought, there's the power. And it got me thinking about a power bigger than myself. So I thought, maybe that's my journey. So now after a bit of a sleep, I came back. And so to get to that lesson for those big boats, I had to start somewhere. But look at the junk I brought back with me. Look at it. Anyway, there I am. I'm with the big boys. Not too quick here, right? I'm with the big boys, and I think, it's not just one power, there's all these other people as well. And that, by the way, is what Miami used to look like, according to a travel friend of mine. There used to be ocean liners lined up, leaving every half hour for around the world. So there they are, and I think I'm number 2. So we're on the high seas, and we're there. I've got a bunch full of passengers, and everyone gets scared. They look down and think, what's that? No one knows. It's something from the deep. It's quite scary, and are we going to be scared of it? And it just made us think, we don't know everything. What is at the bottom of the sea, or what is up even higher in Earth's atmosphere? It is just food for thought. Or is it our garbage coming to the surface? Okay. So I thought I needed something a bit more classy. I was going to be, this time, with the sheiks and the kings and queens and the presidents. I had a ship that was for them. And there I am, sleek, fit, fully prepared for any emergency. And that did me for some time, for quite some time actually. So then that eventually, everything comes to an end. So at the end of that experience, I thought, I'm now starting to think about flying. Why? Well, why limit myself to being on the water? So because of all my other experience with those big boats, I chose this, from looking down on the universe and the earth, and there it is. And I did that for a while. I got tired of the drama of battles and things, and I had a dream. And in that dream, I dreamt this. There's the hull, which can float, and there's the wings that can take me above. Now, we know we've got old flying boats and things, but this was something a little bit more. So that's what I dreamt. So I had another sleep and woke up. There I am. And that's as far as I've got with all that. So that's what I'd tell some people, to introduce them to some of our teachings in a fun sort of way. Now, we've all had sea experiences, and if you've been across to Tasmania a few times on the Spirit of Tasmania, you'll know it's pretty turbulent sometimes. I've had the turbulent one, and I've had the good one. But one experience, which was a message too, which was interesting, I walked into the lounge where you go, and there's a young lady playing the electric keyboard and singing. There was only about 5 people in the lounge. It was pretty dead, really. Anyway, she looked at me very strangely, and she immediately went into a song. I thought, how dare you? And the song was all about where I was. It was amazing. Desperado. I pretended I didn't react, but I did have a gin and tonic at the bar, and she did eventually finish up playing some more Eagles songs too. And I remember, Sylvia, you worked on the boats for many years, and I remember telling you when I got back from Tasmania on the ship, when you're in the cabin and you're lying on your bunk, and you could sleep forever. It's rocking. And that song rocked in the cradle of the deep. And you said, yes, you remembered that very well. And I did too. It was just so beautiful. I didn't want to sort of stop from that. And other experiences have come across too, like John Wesley, who you would think was really solid in his faith, had it very, very severely tested on the sea. There was this violent storm, and he thought that they were all going to go down. But there was a group of Moravians who were a very strict, like Plymouth Brethren type group, and they were singing and they were at peace with the world. And Wesley knew that he had a long way to go, but his faith became more established that day. That was when he was on the way to America, preaching about the Methodist religion, even though he was still a Church of England priest. And he said that he was going to stay that until he passed away, and he did. Methodism came in via other channels. So to sum up, it's not where you start, it's where we finish. As our consciousness expands, it will use appropriate terms and vehicles for us as we use that expanded consciousness. It's probably just as well we don't know the future. The only moment we have is now. And knowing that heaven and hell are states of earth and our teachings, which are universal, they're going to last us for lifetimes. We've got those teachings here, the most expanded truth teachings. So I'd like to finish up with a little Irish ditty. There are good ships and wood ships, ships that sail in the sea, but the best ships, friendships, may they always be. Thank you, everybody.